really great reading month, and it's all thanks to Stephen King, who took me out of my reading slump. So let's talk about all the books I read recently. I read You Like It Darker by Stephen King, which is the latest short story collection from him, and there are so many good stories in this, and a lot of the characters in this book are older, later in their lives, and they're reflecting on their lives up until that point. So it's very emotional at points, and it really got me thinking of how Stephen King is feeling at this point. It's just very reflective, and I'm getting sad thinking about it because Stephen King's afterward is also very reflective. Like, it made it seem like this is it because he's getting up there, and I'm just like, I can't handle this, okay? There's a lot of good stories in this. Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, it's basically a novella in itself. It's so fucking long, but it's so good, and it's centered on this guy who one day has a dream about seeing this person's body, and he goes out to see if it's real. Spoiler, it is real. He finds the body, and then he anonymously calls it into the police, and they think he did it. So it's a whole story about how the police is trying to get him, and it's really good. It's really good. I could see it being made into a mini-series. There's also a sequel to Cujo, and it's a story called Rattlesnakes, and I haven't read Cujo, but I loved this story. It was so it was beautiful, and it's centered on the husband from Cujo, and he's much later in his life, so you get insight onto his relationship with the mom and the son and all of that stuff. And there's just like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it because the ending is so good, and there's also a lot of creepy stuff in this, a lot of ghostly stuff in this, just really dark imagery as well. There's also one called Lori about a guy and his dog. Oh, it's so good. And then there's another one called The Answer Man, which is another story about a guy who he goes to like this roadside psychic, and he asks him about his life, and he gets predictions, and his life doesn't go as he imagined, and it's so just sad. It's a gut punch, but it's so fucking good. I loved this book so much, I didn't want it to end, and I need more. And that book got me out of the reading slump that was caused by this book, Murder Road by Simone St. James. I loved Sundown Motel by Simone St. James, so I was like, I think I like this author. But I hated the Book of Cold Cases because it was just very repetitive and boring, and this one, sad to say, I did not like it. So it's centered on this newlywed couple who are driving to their honeymoon, and they find themselves on this really weird road. It's very dark, and a lot of shit has happened on this road, and they pick up this hitchhiker, and she's been injured badly, and she dies. They bring her to the hospital, and they get pulled into the case. They think they did it. And while they're there, they start looking into the murder, and they discover that this road has a ton of murders that have happened on it. So they try to figure it out. And it just gets really weird. It's just slow. You're pulled in immediately with this action, but then it just kind of like stays stable through it. Like, nothing really happens for a good portion of the story. I did like the characters, but I don't know. I was just bored. And the ending is kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Did you like this one? Because if you did, please tell me and tell me why. Then I read, how do you say this? Because I know I'm saying it wrong. This comes out in October, and you need to read this if you love weird horror. I love this book so fucking much. It was exactly what I wanted. This is centered on this guy who is suicidal. He's nearing the end, and he's basically on his way to kick it. And he gets off at the subway station on a platform that is deserted. No train comes back. He's stuck. And he starts to explore, and it's seemingly endless. And it's just weird. And he meets another person who's been stuck there for like months. And they start exploring together, and they find some really weird, creepy stuff. This one is so trippy and weird, and it feels very like liminal horror, those weird horror that does not make sense. I've heard it compared to House of Leaves, which I haven't read yet, so I don't know how it compares, but it's just so weird. Like, mind-bending is the best word I can describe, because I had no idea what was going on, but at the same time, I did. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this that doesn't make sense. It's very surreal, and I liked it. So if you like that kind of horror, you'll really like this. I think there's also a lot of stuff about depression and suicide, and a lot of stuff I could relate to as somebody who struggles with depression. And some of the things that they say in this book, I completely understand what they're saying and how you feel when you're depressed, and that feeling of hopelessness that you get. Like, I feel like the author perfectly put it into words. So I just love this one. I really hope you check it out because I want it to do well. Then I checked out I'm Not Your Final Girl, which is a collection of Poems by Claire C. Holland, and the poems are told from the POV of our favorite final girls and scream queens in horror. And there's a lot of powerful poems in here. There's poems from Ginger Snaps, Rosemary's Baby, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like all of the stuff we know and love as horror fans, like all the big popular horror movies, as well as some little underseen gems. And a lot of them are about violence against women, how women are treated in the horror genre, or their characters, the female characters, and all the shit they have to go through. And it was really good. And I'm not a poetry reader, but I really liked this one. So if you like poems and poetry and horror, check this one out. I also checked out Stitches, which is the new manga collection with artwork by Junji Ito, and this one was okay. There's a bunch of ghost stories that are just kind of average, mediocre. They didn't really go to the disturbing, scary level that I was expecting. So, I don't know. I think it's fun, it's quick, the artwork is beautiful, the stories were just like, meh. I also checked out Small Town Horror by Ronald Malfi, and I love Ronald Malfi, okay? He gets it. This story is very much similar to Stephen King's It. Like, it just has a Stephen King vibe. Like, I felt like I was reading Stephen King. It's centered on this guy who gets a call one day from a childhood friend, and he's told he has to come back to his hometown because they need him. There's something going on. All these friends, they did something horrific in their childhood, and you slowly figure out what it was. And that thing has come back to haunt them. And it is so just good. I loved the characters. I loved the small town setting and vibe, and a lot of the horror was just like slow but haunting, like some really creepy moments, and it has a really bleak ending, and you need to read it, okay? I haven't seen anybody else talking about this book, and it's so fucking good. Lastly, I read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, which was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I sadly didn't love it. So this is centered on a horror movie that has grown a cult following, but it has never seen the light of day because something horrible happened on this set of this horror movie. And years later, Hollywood is rebooting it, and we're following somebody from the movie. His name is the Thin Kid, and he's helping them reboot it. It takes place in the past, where you get to see how he gets involved in this movie, and we get to see the behind the scenes making, the process of making this movie, and we get to see the script. Plus, we get to see present day, where he is, you know, dealing with horror movie directors, screenwriters, all of that stuff, and trying to help the movie get made. And it's weird. I liked it at first. It's a very quick read because the script element, it really started to get on my nerves after a while because it's very repetitive and just boring. The movie that they're making is boring. And there's several instances where they talk about how it is just a genius script and it's a genius horror movie, and I'm just like, where is the genius? What is so genius about it? Can you tell me, Paul? I'm sorry, Paul. I'm sorry. This was my first Paul Tremblay book. And, like, I liked it, but I didn't like it at the same time, you know? Like, I don't know. The script just felt so fucking pretentious, and, like, all the characters felt that way, and I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't like it, but I did. I don't know. But the movie was boring, like, nothing happened. But then, like, weird shit happens later, like, that I don't understand. It was just weird and confusing. The main character, I was confused about him as well. Like, I don't know. It's also about Hollywood and, you know, how Hollywood treats creatives and how creatives are so passionate about their art and how they're willing to do anything to make it perfect and make it everything they want, that they might just put themselves in danger, or they might put others in danger. And I thought that stuff was interesting, but I don't know. I didn't love it. I'm also currently reading How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive by Craig DiLouie, and I love Craig DiLouie. And this is a similar theme, similar concept. It's about Hollywood and making a movie and how creatives are treated in Hollywood. And this director wants to make like a pure horror movie. He doesn't want to make a campy horror movie, and the studios won't let him make the horror movie he wants to make. But he finds a cursed camera that essentially kills people on camera, and he wants to use it. But I'm like almost 300 pages in, and I'm kind of like, I don't know, bored, I guess. Like, the cursed camera element isn't a huge part of it. Like, I feel like it's more about being a person in Hollywood as a creative, because it also follows an actress who's trying to make it as a final girl and just like her process. And it's more about their lives and how they're treated. And the cursed camera element is just kind of like a like a side plot. So I'm hoping that the cursed camera element gets pulled into it more, but I think this book is really long. Like, it's just like, okay, I get it. Can we get to the point? And I'm sad to say, because I really was excited about this book too. And I think just reading these two back to back, and also like seeing a movie like Maxine, which is also similar themes of Hollywood and how it treats people in it and the weirdness of Hollywood. So I feel like I've just been over consuming this concept, and I think I'm just over it now. They're talking too much, like, about making the perfect horror movie, blah blah blah. Just give me the horror, okay? Just give me what I want and give me the horror. I don't know. If you've read these, please, please, please let me know your thoughts, because I want to talk more about it. I'm still processing my thoughts. I also filmed a reading vlog of me reading those two books, so I may post it, I may not. Let me know if you're interested in seeing that. Those are all the books I've read recently. I'm very proud of myself because I have been struggling this year. Let me know what books you've read recently, what you're currently reading, and what you're looking forward to. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye.